Right, I would like to call to order the Ulster County Capital Resource Corporation Board meeting. Rose, roll call.
Diane Hyman,
Here.
Michael Ham.
Here.
Anna Archer.
Here.
Steve Kelly.
Here.
Rachel Silverman.
Here.
Rashida Tyler. Here. And Costa Bonall.
Here.
All right, welcome everyone. The mission statement of the Ulster County Capital Resource Corporation. The mission of the Ulster County Capital Resource Corporation is to promote community and economic development in Ulster County in ways that complement the work of Ulster County, primarily through issuing and selling bonds for nonprofit institutions. All right, on page 3 you'll find the minutes from the May 18th regular meeting. Since there's only currently 2 members here who were at the meeting, I'd ask Mike and myself to review meeting minutes and others as well, but then to approve, a motion to approve the minutes.
Chair, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of the previous meeting.
Second? I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All
I
right,
abstain, I wasn't there.
so noted. Any public comment? Anyone here for public comment on agenda items only? No. We do not need executive session. Rose, could you walk us through financials? It's on page, I'm thinking it's on page 7, according to my agenda here. Excellent,
There was nothing extra added to this packet.
excellent.
So, this one you'll see looks very different from the IDA because there was money that came in only with invoices, by the end of May. It is rare, this is the first project that I've had come to the CRC since I've been here. The last one before that was Woodland Pond. And I believe, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it closed at the end of 2017, or was it the end of 2017 was when the last project was. So that 70,000 in fees was collected from, Romeo Kia. Then the project admin fees passed through, there was a timing difference because of when it was billed. Thank you. Timing difference because of when it was billed versus when the fees were paid. The fees were paid out to the Daily Freeman for a special meeting and for a public hearing, the notice of the publication. So the expense had actually gone on to last year's books where we didn't recognize revenue. So the $180 of revenue is a slight difference in the pass-through for this year. The only other activity is $44.45 of interest income. We don't normally pay fees out of the CRC for administrative staff on a monthly basis. The CRC reimburses the IDA quarterly just because there really isn't too much. You can see there's a huge difference in the dollar amount for what's budgeted for the IDA versus the CRC. So like the CRC only has budgeted $12,600 for the year. I know it's only through May and we're over the halfway mark, but that's more than typical because the bulk of the work for the CRC is going to happen doing the parish reporting and all of the beginning of the year stuff. So there won't be a lot of fees throughout the rest of the year. And then one thing that's a little bit large, so I'll just call it to your attention. Didn't happen in May, it happened in January. Account number 6290 for grants and donations. There was $110,000 paid out in January. We did check with our auditors before putting it in which year it should go in. The board approved the grant to People's Place in December of 2021, but the actual contract and terms weren't signed until January, and then we paid it out in January. So therefore, we confirmed that it should be a January of 2022 expense. This was done after the budget was passed for 2022 because the original budget has to be into the state by October, and this was done after the fact. So it'll be part of the changes that we'll have to approve these changes to the budget once we get towards the end of the year. The board will typically, and should, it's best practice, the board should approve the overages that you have in your budget on certain line items.
Is it typical to have grants and donations each year or each quarter?
No. So, well, I say no, but the last few years it's been yes. But again, not typical the last few years. In 2020, the New York State passed rules that the IDAs, so not the CRC, but that the IDAs could give grants. David, is there an issue? We can hear everything that's think. The IDA was allowed to give grants to businesses for the purposes of PPE. IDAs are not allowed to do that. Okay, so then our IDA, because of the rules that were given, it was very strict. You could only give those grants to employers that had less than, it was either 50 and less than, or less than 50 employees. So we felt like we didn't want to keep it to only 50 employees, because some of our projects all of our projects are important to us, and some of them have more than 50 employees. So the ones that were nonprofits and the ones that were more than 50 employees, we did the grants the same exact scenario, but through the CRC. So over the last few years, yes, there has been, but it's not something that's necessarily been a recurring situation. And then the 100, no, then this 110 was a different situation where the board voted in December to give money to People's Place to give gift cards to individuals, because we had already helped the businesses in need. They felt they wanted to help the individuals in need in the county. And so there was $50 in gift cards to ShopRite, Hannaford, and one other one that I can't think about, to help them buy their own food or their own supplies. I know, for example, one woman, when I had talked to somebody in Phoenicia, one woman was so excited because she could use the money to buy cat food, because that's not something, for example, that her food stamps would allow her to pay for. So it was something to help in that respect. And then I've heard a lot of positive feedback from the groups that we gave them out to, because People's Place facilitated this for us. They gave out 1,300 of the 2,090 gift cards, but then it was also distributed throughout the county to different food banks, or in places where the food banks didn't want to participate, they were then given to a nonprofit that we knew we could trust to report back. So for example, Phoenicia Library and Pine Hill took the lead there and gave out the gift cards to the people that they could give them out to, because it was important to make sure it was equitable throughout the county based on need.
Mike?
And just to touch base, there was really no restriction on what you could use the cards for, except for alcohol and cigarettes.
Yeah.
Okay? Tobacco products. Other than that, if somebody felt the need to offset their electric bill or something with it, they could have done that.
So then on page 8, it's the same exact scenario. Rhinebeck Bank had the best CD rate that we could find, and also sticking with the fact that certain banks can't take our money because of being a government agency. So Rhinebeck Bank has a $200,000 CD, and the same thing, the bulk of the money is in the Bank of Greene County in the checking account, because that was the higher rate, and we had closed the savings account because we're not really using the bank, we just wanted the good rate. And then enough operating funds are sitting in the M&T Bank that should last. I mean, it's definitely more than a year, but enough to not have to run from bank to bank to change money over. You'll notice there is the accounts receivable. The closing fees that are received from projects are typically received via wire transfer. In this case, Romeo Kia wrote a check. They gave it to Joe. Yeah, Joe's laughing. They gave it to Joe. Joe mailed it to us. So there was a slight timing issue on when it was invoiced and when we received the money, where normally it's day of. So there's a carryover. It has since been received. It's just that it wasn't received as of May 31st. The reason it's higher than $70,000 is because it includes pass-throughs. It included the pass-through to the IDA because there was a small balance due to the IDA from when it was an IDA project, and had IDA fees for the background check and that public hearing. Then it had pass-throughs to us for our public hearing expenses, as well as $8,000 put into escrow for Loki Brill. That's it on the financials.
Thank you, Rose. Any questions?
I'd just like to supplement what Rose talked about. The IDA policy with respect to fees is 1% of the project cost. So the Romeo transaction was $7 million, so 1% of $7 million is $70,000. And the get an affidavit at the time of closing from the company stating affirmatively what the project cost is, and then we have a mechanic, and we talked a little bit about this at the orientation session. We have a mechanic that at the time of completion, they need to give us a follow-up certificate indicating what the actual project cost was, and if it was over, in this case 7 million, they owe us the difference at 1%. If it's under, there's no refund.
So since the Capital Resource Corporation is for loaning to not-for-profits, is Romeo Keo a not-for-profit?
The primary purpose, if you look, when you look carefully at the certificate of incorporation, the powers are very broad, or relatively broad. The original purpose for creating the entity was, as I indicated at our orientation session, was to service not-for-profit corporations, because that authority went away. What we did, based on the board determination, was a concern for continuing that project when the project got interrupted because of a procedural issue with the county government. All right, and so there was a determination made by the board to move forward. We held another public hearing. We then went through the process with the CRC. The CRC made some certain findings, and I can present that resolution to you for your review if you'd like, but we made sure that it fit within our overall purpose. But you're absolutely correct that the general knee-jerk, if you will, of the CRC's purposes or the type of project that it would undertake would be a not-for-profit project.
Thank you, Rose. Chair's report, nothing to report for CRC. Rose, anything? Chief Executive Officer's report?
No, usually it just mimics the IDA. The last few months I have reported on People's Place and an update on where we're at with the gift cards, how many have been given out, etc. I don't have a report this month from them because I know that the executive director there has been dealing with some health issues. So I just didn't get the report this month, but I will make sure that we get one for next month. I would be very surprised if there were any gift cards left by this month. As of last month, there were like a couple hundred left. You can imagine $2,050 gift cards goes very quickly. And one of the things that I thought was so great about the timing, originally we were thinking we were going to give them out in December, right? Because everybody's thinking about that stuff in December. But we ended up not giving them out until February, which really I think worked better because people aren't thinking about it in February, right? There isn't so much of a huge rush to give donations or to help with food or to help with all these extra items. So obviously February, March are going to be harder times for everyone. And so it was within a month, the bulk of them were gone.
Thank you, Rose. Committee reports, reflecting IDA as well. The meeting, there was nothing to report in audit for the CRC because we do not have the same conditions with contractors, et cetera, that come under the CRC. Nothing to report in finance, I know, and all right, for governance, thank you. We do not have any old business. Our new business is election of chair and officers and appointment of committees, and I would like a motion that the election of chair and officers and appointment of committees for the CRC reflect of the IDA and what we approved in our IDA meeting. If I could have a motion for that?
I'll make that motion, Chair.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Roll call, sorry.
Diane Iden?
Yes.
Michael Ham?
Yes.
Lynn Archer?
Yes.
Stephen Kelly?
Yes.
Rachel Silverman? Yes. Rashida Tyler?
Yes.
Costa Blanc.
Yes.
All right. Before we adjourn, I just want to acknowledge and thank Rose and Joe Scott and his firm for all of the help that they provided in the great training that we had, our education and orientation session on Friday. So thank you both for that, Joe and your firm and your staff that came, and to you, Rose, as well. So thanks. May I have a motion to adjourn our meeting? Second?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. All in favor?